Welcome in, everybody, to the College Football Betting YouTube channel. Before we get to the video you came here for, please do me a very quick favor. Do your boy a solid. Go ahead, subscribe to this YouTube channel. Really does help me grow, really does help this audience grow. And, of course, we are going to be giving you good, unique, fun, informed college football betting content all season long. Also, of course, you can find full episodes of College Football Betting with Aaron Torres wherever you download podcasts, Apple, Spotify, Amazon Music, etc. Now let's get to the video you came here for. Let's keep it going with the second big game. We'll take a quick break, come back, and hit everything else. Second big game. Top 10 matchup as well, or top 15 matchup, I guess it is, in Atlanta. Neutral site game by technicality, but it's not really a neutral site game. Oregon playing Georgia, the defending national champs. The spread is 17 points. Georgia is a 17-point favorite. The over-under set at 53, 3:30 Eastern kickoff, ABC. Let's get excited, people. Like Ohio State, Notre Dame, I think we all know the big headlines here, right? The big headlines are obviously a couple things. One, Georgia, how do they bounce back off of the historic haul that they lost off last year's national championship team? Georgia, of course, coming off their first national championship in 40 years. They lose an NFL record 15 NFL draft picks. 15 NFL draft picks. And then on top of that, 5 first-round picks on the defense. Bunch of offensive players, Zamir White, James Cook, on and on and on and on and on. Now, it is worth noting, with everything that they lost, they still have plenty of talent, 5 stars all over the field, but they did lose a historic haul. And what makes this game especially interesting is that they are facing an Oregon team coached by you-know-who at this point, their former defensive coordinator, Dan Lanning. And so that's where it gets fascinating to me, is that in theory, Dan Lanning's not going to know what Oregon's going to do per se, or what Georgia's going to do per se, but Dan Lanning does know the personnel. He does know the strengths and weaknesses. He does know in theory where certain players can be exposed or certain spots can be exposed or whatever. And so that's what makes this game interesting to me, kind of a chess match between teacher versus pupil. I know the teacher versus pupil stuff is a little bit overrated. Obviously, Nick Saban's been going up against his pupils forever. None of them beat him until last year. But I do think that sets for an interesting stage in Atlanta, and it sets for an interesting stage from this perspective. Because Georgia has lost so much, I could see it either way, right? On the one hand, you could sit there and say, Georgia lost so much, I could see this game being close. On the other side, you could sit there and say, well, Oregon has a new head coach. They're coming into SEC country. It is going to be bad for Oregon. I'll tell you straight up, I tend to actually side with I think this game could be closer than people think for a few different reasons. Let me explain why. The first one, I know the numbers don't bear it out, but Oregon will be the best defense talent-wise that Georgia's going to face in the regular season. Now, you get to the SEC championship game against Alabama, that's a different deal. You get to the college football playoff and you're playing Clemson or Ohio State or whoever, it's a different deal. But in the regular season, Oregon probably has the most talent of anybody in college football. I use this story, or anyone on Georgia's schedule. I use this story on the Pac-12 preview episode, but remember, when Mario Cristobal left Oregon, he told those players, don't enter the transfer portal. Don't follow me. Don't give up on this because we have a national championship caliber team in this locker room, and I think he really believed it, specifically on the defensive side of the ball. Noah Sewell, going to be a first-team All-American if he stays healthy, no doubt about it. Going to be a first-round pick if he stays healthy. Justin Flo, linebacker, former 5-star. Dante Manning, cornerback, former 5-star. Christian Gonzalez, I don't claim to be an NFL scouting guru, but I've seen mock drafts where he's a first-round pick. Transfer from Colorado. And so you look at this defense, it is the most talented defense that Georgia is going to see across the board. And let's call a spade on Georgia's offense. Even last year during the title run, they weren't super dynamic. And I do think there's been a little bit of revisionist history on Stetson Bennett. Now, to his credit, Stetson Bennett won the 2 biggest games of his career. Michigan in the semifinal, Alabama in the final. But let's not forget, it was as recently as the national championship game that we were saying, you got to bench Stetson Bennett. He ain't the guy to get you over the hump. Like, we can deny it now. We can pretend like it didn't happen. But that is a fact, and Stetson Bennett historically against elite defenses, when you can't just run right at them like Georgia did most of last year, he really struggled. And so credit to him for winning in the college football playoff. But I still have questions. They lose their top two backs, as I said, Zamir White and James Cook. Their most dynamic wide receiver, Jermaine Burton, transferred to Alabama. They do still have a ton of talent at the tight end position. I think Georgia will be able to move the ball. I don't know that they're 17 points better than Oregon, though. Now, the reason I can't pick Oregon outright is I do think, it's funny, right? So much stuff now happens in college football, off seasons, with the coaching carousel, and more importantly, with the transfer portal. I think you forget a lot of stuff. And one thing that I think is easy to forget with Oregon, and some of you know, and I'm not trying to, demean you or belittle you, but we know who Oregon's starting quarterback is going to be, right? By technicality, Dan Lanning hasn't named him yet, but Kirby Smart said in a press conference, I know who it's going to be, and I think we all think it's going to be a little guy named Bo Nix. And so why I bring it up and why I think it matters is I think Oregon could keep it close. I think if they had a quarterback I trusted, I'm not saying I would call for the upset. I don't think it would be insane, though. The problem becomes the following. We've seen Bo Nix against Georgia, and it ain't pretty. Bo Nix coming from Auburn. I looked up the stats to see if they were as bad as I remembered. Oh, they were as bad as I remembered. Here are Bo Nix's 3 games against Georgia. 30 of 50 passing, 0 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. That was as a freshman. That was actually his best game. 21 of 41 as a sophomore, 127 yards, 0 touchdowns, 1 interception. 21 of 38 as a junior, 0 touchdowns, 1 interception. So in his career, 3 starts against Georgia, Bo Nix is completing 55% of his passes, 0 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Not ideal. To take it a step further, I'll just say this. I think there's a lot of people, Bo Nix, he just needs a change of scenery. I don't think you're wrong necessarily. Here's the problem, though. Bo Nix got the new coach last year. Bo Nix got the coach that was going to try to take a bunch of stuff off of his plate last year. It was Brian Harsin. Brian Harsin didn't want him running around like a lunatic like Gus Malzahn did. But guess what? He did it anyway. He's Bo Nix. It's what he does. And so unless Dan Lanning has a total curveball at quarterback that we're not anticipating, that Kirby Smart is not anticipating, Bo Nix is going to be the guy. And I just can't get behind taking Oregon plus the points. To me, the best bet, and it is something that I believe in, it's one of my favorite bets of the week, I'm going to take the under. I'm going to take the under 53 because I think this is the most talented defense Georgia will play all year. And I do think, at least into the SEC championship game, and I do think that Oregon is going to really struggle to score the ball. So if historically Bo Nix is averaging 10 points per game scored against Georgia, that means that Georgia's going to have to score 40-plus points to hit the over. I just don't see it happening. This feels like a 28-10, 27-10 type game to me.